privilege of going to the Maldives Islands with my teacher and colleague, Professor Sri Jayewardenepura, to read the oldest Maldivian document called a Loma Fanu, a document written in the 12th century after their conversion from Buddhism to Islam. Now, there I came to know that the Maldivians were counting in 12 up to very recent times. ඔය මාලදිවේ ඉන්නේ මිනිස්සු මෑතක් එනකන් ගන්නේ 12න් 12. මෙන්න මේ වගේ 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 12 1 12 2 12 3 12 4 යන්නේ. අන්න එදා කිව්වා 3 12 කියලා. මගේ 3 12 එහේ ආවහඳුනේ 3 12 3 12 1 3 12 2 3 12 3 ෆස් 12 අදත් කියන්නේ ෆස් 12 කියලා හැටට ෆස් 12 කියලා ෆස් 12 1 ෆස් 12 2. Now in the Maldives Islands they have been counting in 12 until very recent times. And by the way, Maldivians are those who went from Sri Lanka and settled there in the early part of the 6th or 7th century. So Maldives ඉන්නේ අය මෑතක් එනකන් 12න් ගා ඉන්නේ. හැබැයි ඒ අය එහෙ ගියේ ලංකාවෙන්. The Maldives are not Arabs, but Sinhalese who went there and settled there. They were Sinhala Buddhists who were converted later, and they were Sinhala Buddhists, and they were counting in 12. That means we did count in 12 here, but we have given it up. Because we were under the Portuguese, the Dutch, and everybody here. But they were not. So they still kept to the old system of counting, whereas we gave up and preferred the modern decimal system. So there. So I heard the very word tundolos, tindolos. We say tundolah, they say tindolos. Now they went there, the Maldivians went there, just around the 6th century, before we invented the a and the a. Now in Sinhala, we have done a wonderful thing by creating two sounds which are not found in Pali or Sanskrit. The a. Now Maldivians still don't have the a. So they went there before we discovered the a. So for ata they say et. For water they fen. Pan කියන්න බෑ pan නක්ද fen කියනවා. Fen for the කියලා. ඇහැට කියන්නේ s කියලා. So Maldivians went there around the 6th century. Before we discovered the a and the a, the letters. Of course, after we create the Sanyaka, the four Sanyaka sounds, the were discovered, were created by Sri Lankan, by Sinhalese. Now they have it. The only other language that has a set of pre-nasal sounds called Sanyaka is Maldivian, called the Vebas. For we say Handa, they say Handu. We say for wife Ambu, they say Ambi. We say mango Amba, they say Ambu. So they have the nasals. That means they went there after we created the four nasal sounds. After the nasal, before the a. So you can place. So they were, so Indian, Maldivians or Sri Lankans, Sinhalese who went there and they were using the 12th system. So that's evidence for me to say that in the past we were using the duodecimal system. Not only the Sinhalese, the entire world, I think, the world that we knew, were using the duodecimal system. Now in our daily life, even today, how many sets of 12 are we using? How many sets of 12? Look at the nature. The sun we say moves on a zodiac. But the Rashi Chakra, how many Rashis are there? 12. There are 12 Rashis. Rashi 12 තියෙනවා. Rashi Chakra. And it takes 1 year to complete the circle. How many months in 1 year? 12. The 12 months. Then you take a day has 12 hours, a night has 12 hours. Take an hour, again a multiple of 60. An hour has 60 minutes. 1 minute has 60 seconds. All in 12s. And even in Sinhala we say hat a pair. So in the measurement of time, both the Sinhalese and the entire world count in 12. Then how many more other 12 that you come across? A dozen. How much is dozen? 12. Then they have a dozen, a gross. 144. Remember the multiplication table we studied when we were at school? Then ඉස්සරනම් අර ඇක්සස් පොතේ තිබ්බ පිටකවරේ හඳුන්නේ මේ දෙවරක් චක්‍රය තුන්වරක් චක්‍රය චක්‍ර තිබුණා. ඒක කොහොමද 12 වන්නේ? දෙකේව 12යි හතරේව 12යි අනිත් 12ව 12ක් තියෙනවා. 10 නැවතුනේ නෑ මේ ගිහිල්ලා. So in the multiple table we were going by sets of 12. Why 12? We will think about it. And remember now when we count in Sinhala, up to 12 we have only one word. Once you go to 12 you change it to 2 words. 10, 11, 12 කියලා ඊට පස්සේ මාරු කරනවා 13, 14 කියලා. 10න් 10 ගියා නම් අර 20 21 වගේ කරන්න ඕනේ 10න් පස්සේ 11, 12, 13 අගේට තියෙන්නේ. 14, 16, 17 යනවා නම් මාරුවෙන් තිබේ 10 දිනේ. 11, 12 නෑ ඒව බෑ. 12ට ගිහිල්ලා පයින් 13ට. ඉංග්‍රීසිත් එහෙමයි. Up to 12 you go at one set. Then after 12 you say 13, 14, 15 like that. 13, 14, no 13, 13 like that. They should have said 1 teen, 2 teen. They didn't. We were going in 12s. But ගණිනකොට අපි 12ට ගන්නලයි මාරුවේ ඊළඟ එකට. ඇයි අර පරණ හිතවිල්ල අපේ හිතේ තිබුණේ හින්දා. And now think of multiples of 12. මේ 12 ලං වෙනකොට වැඩි multiples ගුණ වෙන්නේ නැහැ මම දන්නවා. just පොඩි විලාමකට පොඩක් දෙන්න. මේ 12 කතාව කියන්න. විවරණ කීයක් තියෙනවද අපි පොයිසත්තුන් හාමුදුරනේ? සූවිසි විවරණයක් තියෙනවා. 24යි. අයි ඒක 20ක් කරගත්තේ නැහැ 30 කරගත්තේ නැහැ 24යි. 60ක් කිව්වහම නොයේ තැන් වල 60 ඒවා තියෙනවා. අර 60 පැත් එක වගේ. 84ට යන්න පුළුවන්. 12 7 times 12 84. Entire corpus of Buddha's teaching are divided into 84,000 dharmaskandhas. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ ධර්මස්කන්ධේ 84000ක්. අර 84000 තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා පාම් පිංකමක් අපේ තියෙනවා 84000. වෙන ගණන් හරියන්නේ නැහැ. No one is going to count but it has to be 84,000. 84000 තියෙන්න ඕනේ. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ සිරිපත තියෙනවා මගුල් ලකුණු 108ක් 12ව 9යි. අන්තිමට අපි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ අපි හඳුන්නේ 120යි 1210යි. So the maximum age called Paramayusha for us is 120 years, which is a multiple of 12 into 10. Now let's go into my own area of folk idiom. උදේව අපි කියන්නේ කොච්චර 12ව තියෙනවද? හයියෙන් යනකොට යන්නේ කොහමද? 60ට 60නේ. 30 කියලා බෑ. යනවා යන්න ඕනේ 60ට 60. සමහර දේශනා කළාද 60ට 60. නේ සුනිල්? 60ට 60 කියන්නේ ඒ ස්පීඩ් එක 60ට 60 යන්න ඕනේ. සමහර වඳුරෝ ඉන්නවා 60 පෑන්නත් බිම යන්නේ නැහැ අපි වගේ. වඳුරෝ ගැන කියලා තියෙන්නේ. සමහර අය කතමේ 60 පහිච්ච කතා තියෙන හඳුන්නේ. කොල්ල පොඩි වුණාට කියන්නේම 60 පැහිච්ච කතාව. ඉතින් 60 තමයි demarcation එක. ඇඳිරියක් එනවා 60 ඇඳිරිය කියලා. After 60. V වර්ගයක් තියෙනවා 60 දාවි කියලා. අපේ ගමේ වචනයක් තියෙනවා අපේ හාමුදුරනේ අවසරයි මේ කියන්න. මේ for a woman of loose character නෑ හාමුදුරනේ මම කියන්න ඉන්න. දැන් කිව්ව කියලා හිතා ගන්නකො 60 මේ. අපිට නගින්නේ කීයටද? 84000ට. අර පාම්පිකම වගේමයි. අපිට කේන්ති ගියාමත් ඒක නිකම්ම කේන්තියක් නෙමෙයි 84000ට නගිනවා අපිට. See, even in our folk idiom, folk speech, we have to use these 12s. So you can go on like that. There are many other examples of the Cholas came here, took 12,000 from us. I mean, then Gajaba goes there, bring that 12 and another 12. The Oya Karabde Kaura Ganina Kia can get the Kum Ganin, the Duludhagian, Kau the Ganin. Igano never gana to have known. Duludhagiam, Duludhaginala, Anna Heva Hatino Katia. Hatakino Heva Hat. Anika Duludharatino. Manu made Dulahe Ganangol in Lassana. So in this way, you can, I'm just to show you, on a certain kind of hypothesis, you can go on collecting data to prove what you want. Now, I have just given examples. Now, then of course, then you have another business. Once you arrive at a new conclusion, something to add to knowledge, you must make it, you must publish it for the knowledge or use of others. So as scholars, if you have a new, like today, you publish it for the benefit of other scholars in the area. තමන් මම හොයාගත්තා කියලා ඉඳලා හරියන්නේ නැහැ. මේක ඒ විෂයේ ඉන්න අනික් අයගේ දැනගෙන සඳහා පළ කරන්න ඕන. For that there are special journals called learned journals. Every university has or ought to have a learned journal of that kind, and I'm sure this campus has one. I remember in my days at Peradeniya, we had the UCR, the so-called University of Ceylon Review. So all research articles are published there. Or you take the journal of the Royal Asiatic Society today. If you have a wonderful research article, you can write to that. So one is, you have to make your research available for others in the same field. So that now if I publish this in a journal on this matter of dual disease, there are others who might come in and say, well, I can add to mine as if he completely demolished me if they like. This is what happened really. But that's what it is. There's nothing kind of absolute truth is another matter. So scientific truth can vary. So then a lot of scholars think that's their business, we publish in the academic journals, no more. But I have another feeling. We are being paid by the people. So we have a right to tell the people what you have been doing here. Even if you want a raise in a salary, you must justify. So I'm always for young researchers to publish their research material in the mass media, in the newspapers, in journals, and in maybe on television and all that. Tell them what you have been doing. This, I have already been doing this. I just don't keep all that for myself. I share my knowledge with that. And what I said now about 12, I have, when I was writing, so many times it was mentioned here that I was the former ambassador to Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, true. That also gave me time and facilities to do something for my country, other than being an ambassador there. So I wrote a book on language and thought. I named it Encyclopedia of Sinhala Language and Culture. So there are about 300 entries here, all about Sinhala in English. And at the very end, I added my new chapter on the duodecimal system, which moves in another area that we had our own numeral system. Sinhala අපර තියෙන අපේ ඉලක්කම්. ඒ ඉලක්කම් රෝම ඉලක්කවල ඉහළයි. The Romans have no 0, but Sinhala numerals have a 0. Now very soon it will be in the Unicode. Approval has been got from the Standards Institute to get the Sinhala numerals encoded in the Unicode. We'll do it very soon. So I have put all that and make it available for, and that our knowledge of mathematics and our knowledge of language made the Sri Lankan, the Sinhalese, produce one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world on par with China, India, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece and Rome. So I have so much evidence to prove that we are on their level. Certainly we are much superior. Indians claim the Buddha to be the greatest son. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ තමයි ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨතම බුද්ධ මේ ඉන්දියානු ಭಾರತೀಯ පුත්‍රයා. ඒ වුණාට බුදු ධර්මයේ තියෙන මේ. We committed to writing the word of the Buddha in Sinhala letters. So we have the Buddha's word in Sinhala letters. So we call that language Pali. Pali is not a language found in India. Pali is our own creation. We have a 0 in our numerals. The Shune is there, again from Buddhism. And when Chinese wanted certain books, rare books in China, they couldn't find it anywhere else. They guessed perhaps it would be in Sri Lanka. So Fahian in the 4th century walked along the Silk Route for 2 years and reached Abhayagiriya and found those rare books at the library. So we were very famous in those days as a repository of knowledge, of libraries, of books, of writers. So we were on the highest level. Romans have no 0, we have 1. Egyptians are credited for having the 3 tallest buildings of the ancient world, the pyramids in Giza. We have the next 3, but constructing a stupa involves much more trigonometry and geometry than the pyramids. The pyramids are very simple in structure, but compared to the stupa, you divide into 2, a mirror image, it's impossible almost. And they hadwa pilimayak pihitigalek aukana hariyata wasara binduවක් ඒ නහයෙන් වැටෙන්නේ හරියට සීපදක මැදට. Wonderful calculations. So mathematically we are very superior. So that's why I want to show the world that at one time we were on par with the great civilization of the world. So this I now put into a book, and now I have, as a token of gratitude, I would like, before I conclude, let me congratulate the university for organizing a seminar of this type for young people with intelligence and an inquisitive mind to get together to create new knowledge, which are doing very well. And I hope the FUTA activities will be fruitful, so that in the future you will be able to live in peace, harmony, and dignity. So I wish you all the best, and have the pleasure in presenting a copy of my latest book, which has this, my theory on the 12th, to the acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Athukorala. Thank you very much.
Conference Secretary of the IRCH 2012, Dr. Chamli Nahalage, will now deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, Reverend Sirs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As we came to the end of the inaugural session of the IRCH's 2012, I have the pleasant task of delivering vote of thanks to this august gathering here. Let me start by quoting, "Gratitude is the attitude that takes you to your altitude." Therefore, On behalf of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, let me extend a very hearty vote of thanks for our chief guest, Deshamanya Professor J.B. Dissanayake, for gracing the function and sharing his thoughts with this audience. Also, I take this opportunity to extend our most sincere thanks to Professor Vimalji Balagalla for his presence as a guest of honor. A big thank you to Professor Gunnar Olsson, our keynote speaker, who came all the way from Sweden and delivered a very interesting speech on the magic art of human action. Thank you, sir. Let me express my gratitude to Dr. N.L.A. Karunaratne, Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, for the helpful hands extended for every activity of the conference, though he is not present here today. I bow my head in gratitude to Professor P. Atu Korala, Acting Vice Chancellor and Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the advisor to the conference for his continual guidance, encouragement, and dedication he made to this event a reality. I'm also grateful to Dr. D.P.S. Chandrakumara too for his advice, help, and encouragement throughout the organization of the conference. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to deans of the other faculties, council members, head of the departments, and the other colleagues from the other faculties, and the librarian for gracing this occasion. Also, I would like to thank Registrar Bursa of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura and the administrative and non-academic staff for their support and presence in this event. Permit me to mention our appreciation and gratitude to the sponsors of this conference. The financial partners, University of Sri Jayewardenepura and the People's Bank, Gangodawila branch, and to the media partner, Sirasa TV, and other media personnel for their presence and media coverage. May I take this opportunity to thank chairpersons, paper reviewers, paper presenters, participants, local and foreign delegates for their presence in the inauguration ceremony. Our special thanks go to Mrs. Preetika Vihiragoda, Senior Assistant Registrar in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, for her continuous support from the very first day we started preparing for this conference. We offer our sincere thanks to our colleagues at the faculty and Assistant Bursa for their help. Also to Mr. Danushka Jayasundara for designing the poster, brochure and the cover page for the proceedings, and also thank all the supportive staff of the faculty office and departments. Also, we thank the technical staff of the computer center, and especially for Mr. Ajit Dasa now with us. Also, the members of the audio-visual unit of the university. I would also like to thank the student volunteers who have been helping us and the dancing group for their beautiful performance. A very special thank goes to Mr. Anura Jayasinghe, Assistant to the Conference Secretary, for his continuous hard work and dedication he showed to make this conference proceed smoothly. Also, an event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheel started rolling exactly about 1 year ago. It required meticulous planning and execution and an eye for details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated committee members who knew their job and are result-oriented. I am unable to express my thanks enough for the involvement they have shown and the willingness they have expressed to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. Dear all, thank you very much, and I am very proud to be a part of this team. Also, there are so many people involved in this, and forgive me for not being able to mention all the names individually. Finally, I thank you all once again for your presence, and I hope you will enjoy the plenary session and the technical sessions. Thank you very much.
Before drawing this inauguration's proceedings to an end, I kindly request you all to rise for the national anthem.
Namo, 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 Mata. After Sri Lanka. Namo, 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 Mata. Sundara Siri Variti, Surati Ati Shoga Manya Lanka. Janya Vanaya Nitama.
Professor of Geography, the Department of Geography, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you all a very pleasant morning and very productive and interesting plenary session on the first International Research Conference conducted under the theme Honoring the Past, Treasuring the Present, Navigating the Future, Making Knowledge Visible, organized by the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. We have 4 presentations at this session, and each presenter will be given precisely 20 minutes for the presentation. There will be about 10 minutes slot for discussion upon completion of all the presentations, and we are supposed to close the session at 1:30, as we are already behind the schedule about 30 minutes. So may I call upon the first speaker. The theme of the first presentation is Remote Sensing and GIS Application in the Study of the Geographical Distribution of Ancient Settlement in the Kaffa el-Sheikh Governorate in the North Central Delta, Egypt. The presenter will be the Professor Lennart Strömquist from the Department of Social and Economic Geography, Uppsala University, Sweden, and here his paper you can find in the page 207 of the preceding report. May I call upon Professor Lennart Strömquist to take the floor. Thank you. Please, thank you.
As you heard, I'm working at Uppsala University. The theme of this conference, I understood when I got the invitation, is also a little bit focused on interdisciplinary work and the development of science by building or standing on the previous scientists' work in continuing the research. And as a theme for my presentation on this meeting, I choose a recent work I've been doing in Egypt, which we heard this morning is also an ancient culture like Sri Lanka. And the reason for this presentation is to show you that you cannot be singular in your own science to take science ahead. Like we heard from Professor Olsson, you have to draw from many sources to take a step further forward. And I, as a geographer, cannot just only quote geographers and think like geographers. We have to cooperate and to integrate our work. On this first slide, you see Dr. Åke Engsheden. He is my opposite in educational skills. Dr. Engsheden, he is an Egyptologist specializing in ancient Coptic language. You know, the language that was wiped out by the Arabic invasion of Northern Africa. His interest is ancient place names and what does those place names mean. My background is geomorphology, how landscape is formed by natural processes. But I'm also a professor of applied environmental impact assessment. And we tried as an experiment to merge our areas of competence to take science a step further. So it's not too much about details in Egypt, that is my message. It's rather to look for new horizons, combining resources, achieving new goals. This one? Okay. This is a map, a very poor map of the northern part of the western part of the Nile in Egypt. For those who are familiar with ancient cultural historical names, you see a lot of ancient known places.
Use this as a pointer.
The map also shows the study area. In the north you have the Mediterranean Sea, and you have a lake called Lake Moeris, which is a sweetwater lake. When Europeans first came to this part of the world, and the first geographers from Europe came, they were astonished by seeing so many sand heaps or hills out in the delta. And papers were written about the origin of those sand heaps or hills. And archaeologists started to dig into them, and they found that these hills, or tells as they are called in Arabic, were ancient cities, forgotten cities, oversanded over long periods of time. I would say that when I said we were working in Egypt, you might think about the pyramids and the very ancient history. What we're going to see today is examples from way like 2,000 years until the Arabic conquest in about 800, year 900. Of course, as a modern scientist, I wanted to reveal secrets from the past by applying modern technology. And when we read the official documents in the Ministry of Ancient History, Egyptian Ministry of Ancient History, only 78 such ancient cities or places were registered in this area. We know that all those 78 places known, they were cities during the Greek and early Roman periods. Cities that were with few survivors. We have Alexandria, for instance, that is surviving from the period. Cities, they were abandoned by salinization of water, decrease of agricultural production, and increase of sea level. You had the Holocene transgression maximum, made the drainage poorer and the survival possibilities poorer. Using modern technologies, I started off with Landsat or TM satellite images and trying to pinpoint, trying to classify what characterized those ancient places. And of course, at the other end of the joint research, Dr. Elsieden started to work with ancient archives, not only written documents from the Roman and Greek periods, but also later from the Maya periods, archives of land ownership and land types and so on. From this image you can see the colors of Jayewardenepura, I'm sorry, but we could identify a lot of such places, about 200 places by just vegetation differences from the surrounding. But to reveal, to find old landscapes, secret landscape, this was not enough. We found in the archives, we tried to reconstruct coordinates from old Arabic descriptions, geographers and so on, and we tried to get the evidence from the satellite images. But we also needed to know topography. And today, the Nile Delta is a modern agricultural landscape. We had to combine technologies to go further. On this map, you see a high-resolution satellite image, and you can see the landscape behind, that is squares, each representing a farmland or a field or a farm. Today, it's more or less flattened out. You can see the remnants of the hills only. But the imperialists, the British, they made very good and accurate maps in the 1920s. And instead of using the most modern technologies like the digital interpretation of satellite images or digital elevation models that many Europeans fancy today, we took the effort to use the contours from the old British maps. And then a completely new landscape was exposed to us. You can see the contours superimposed on the map today. We could see where hills have been, we could see differences in landscape, and we are just in about 1-2 meters above sea level as a whole. You also had to look into the structures. What were those hills? We looked into sediment structures, and we found out that most of those hills, we knew they were ancient cities, but under the ancient cities, we found stratified structures indicating fluvial activity. So they must have been located along river branches of the Nile in the delta. So that was one observation we could make. We could see that they, once upon a time, had been related to then active rivers. But we learned also this morning from Professor Olsson about mapping, what is mapping and how we can map with various aims. And this is maybe difficult to see back in the back seats here, but the first real geometrical maps made of this area were made in the late 18th century by a French military man, Mr. Bonaparte, later becoming the Emperor Napoleon of France. He had a survey team, and the French were very good at that time. They had got more accurate measurements of the Earth. They knew about triangulation, and they had a purpose for the mapping because they wanted to conquer the land to obtain its natural resources. And as these maps were from the Napoleon time, they are very accurate, and they contain a lot of details of value for the militaries in the landscape. So all those ancient cities, in many places, you still see them as those sand hills, but in other places they've been wiped out by modern agriculture. They identified them, and they saw them and they marked them on the map. And by comparing the Napoleon maps that he made of a landscape that was about 1,000 years older with modern satellite images, we could get a confirmation also of locations and sites where you cannot see them today. My message of this is you have to look into different sources. I started with ancient maps and ended up in modern satellite images. Dr. Einseden started in archives, linguistic studies, ending up trying to identify what does the place name mean in there. Here are some more details of the Napoleon map, and you can see quite well this one and that one. You can see those hills of the ancient Greek Roman sites. So that was a little bit of the cultural history we could reveal by looking at the ancient maps. A colleague of mine in the University of Damascus in Egypt, he compiled remnants of ancient fluvial landscape. Today there are just two branches of the Nile crossing the delta, but looking into old cartography, modern maps and so on, he created a map that you can see here that is representing all the known tributary channels in the Nile delta. His name is Professor Jayewardenepura of the University of Damascus. He and I and some others are represented, you can see us on this picture. Okay, then trying to make a joint analysis at the end of the project. First, we used the British, the old, not valid contours to make a contour map on the area. And the darker it is, the higher is the elevation. In the north, you have the maximum extent of that ancient Lake Boreas that is only about 2 meters deep on average. And the maximum occurred has some importance, of course, for the reason later on. We found that we had 2 types of settlements from this historic period. We had in sand hills the tells, and you can see we found a lot of tells by applying these methods. About 200 instead of 78 were revealed by digging into the secret old landscapes. But as I said, my colleague, the Egyptologist, he started by looking at place names. And he found out that still existing villages, those yellow dots you can see in the southern part, quite a number of still existing villages, names could be traced to the ancient Coptic language. And either by the way the grammar, the names were built, and what they meant. So, 1 minute.
5 minutes.
Okay. One conclusion he drew that he could use, like we heard this morning about roots of languages elsewhere from Sri Lanka, he could identify ages of various settlements by just looking into the grammar and the formation of the names. So here we could get the certification from younger to older of the ancient settlements from that time, where the oldest part of the form on the dry ground but close to rivers. One interesting thing finally I can't refrain from commenting to you, and that is, as he was a linguist and I am a geomorphologist, we took an interest in to understand the meaning of various names. And this is, the white line is a contour line on a satellite image. And you see an age, you see lots of triangles representing those ancient settlements. And you see an age next to one of them. That was a very famous term at the time, a famous harbor town. But nobody really could understand, not the archaeologists, nor the Egyptologists at that time, how could there has been a harbor about 35 miles from the coast. And then when we combine this pattern of settlements and the maximum transgression, we could see that this was exactly on the back levee of a river that existed at that time. The Blue River doesn't exist now, it was from Magnus. We have and the name in English of that village means harbor. We had another example, another village was named in English is Pit, Hollow. And we also look by applying those contour lines, pre-agricultural contour lines. We could see in this area we had a lot of ancient bacteria swamps. Finally, that was the last image. My message is not, I don't want you to remember anything about Egypt and those villages. What you should remember from my presentation is that there is a need to look into various sources and gather that information, use your own skill, and then you create the next vision of the reality for others to build on in the future. What is not going to happen here in Egypt, this is not the final solution, is that Dr. Engsten is continuing with the language research. He had a seminar last week in Uppsala about the meeting of about 200 villages. The archaeologists will dig into this. And of course on Sri Lanka you have also a very rich history. And by being open-minded you could really introduce a broad perspective to solve not only old problems, today's problems, but also future problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lennart Stromquist, for the very interesting presentation. And thank you very much for the time management. You took precisely 20 minutes. Once again, thank you very much for your very thought-provoking presentation. And the next presentation will be on preliminary parasitic survey on the natural primate reservoirs of the potential zoonosis in Sri Lanka. It will be presented by a group of researchers headed by Professor M.A. Hoffman, Department of Social Systems Evolution, Primate Research Institute, Kyoto, Dr. C.A.D. Nahalage, Department of Sociology and Anthropology, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, Professor S. Ekanayaka from the Department of Parasitology, Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, and I.H. Hasegawa, L.D.G.G. De Silva, and I.R.K. Ataud, all are from the same department, that is Department of Parasitology, Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayewardenepura. May I call upon Professor M.A. Hoffman to take the floor, please.
All for coming today. It is a great honor and a pleasure to be part of the first of, I hope will be many conferences here at the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. I'll be shifting quite a bit from previous talks and introduce to you a little bit about what we call zoonoses. It's the transmission of diseases from animals to humans or humans to animals. And what we're doing here in Sri Lanka is a very preliminary part of the investigation to try and understand exactly what's going on in this country. First, what zoonosis is, basically what I just introduced, but I'll give you some examples of diseases transmitted from animals to humans or humans to animals. Examples are rabies. We all know about rabies. Ornithosis is a disease transmitted from parrots. Sometimes our own pets can give us diseases. Anthrax, usually a disease within livestock, but is also known to be transmitted to humans, can be very, very lethal. And some of the other more widely spread diseases, SARS, coronavirus. Influenza H5N1, which rapidly travels around the world at certain times of the year when viruses are most easily transmitted. They originate from a mixing of pigs and geese, which are held together in the same farming areas. And that's what leads to the influenza that spreads around the world and has a large impact on humans worldwide. HIV, this was transmitted in the form of SIV from primates to humans, and Marlborough virus, just to name a few. Primate zoonosis, since I'll be talking mainly about the primates here in Sri Lanka, just for some basic information, around the world, there are about 27.5% overlap in the parasites that humans and primates are known to be infected by. We share quite a bit with our primate relatives. And also as well, approximately half of all the bacteria and fungi that infect primates are also known to infect humans. So our mere proximity is a mixing pool of various diseases which have evolved over time to greatly influence how humans behave and how animals behave. Some other examples of work done in Southeast Asia, simian virus, herpes and malaria. Malaria is one of the world's widest causes of death, especially in the tropics. And all of the malarias that humans have today were originally transmitted from primates. The newest malaria now being transmitted as a zoonosis in Southeast Asia is Plasmodium nosi. It's called the last, or the fifth, we hope it's the last, the fifth human parasite. And this is still an ongoing zoonosis being transmitted from macaques to humans. Pets, by our love of animals and taking animals from the wild and having them as pets is also another source of zoonosis, of transmission of disease. You'll notice there are four in blue, Entamoeba coli, Ascaris, Trichoris, and hookworm. I'll be focusing on some of these in our search for zoonoses here in Sri Lanka, and I'll show you some data from that work in a few moments. What are some of the main causes for zoonosis? Why do we find these introductions of diseases from animals to humans at certain times in our history? Well, environmental change. Whenever something happens to the environment, humans either encroaching or animals, because of encroaching, animals are coming into closer contact with humans. We're exposing ourselves and them to diseases that up until that point there was no exposure to. So with this increase in contact that we're experiencing here in Sri Lanka, as well as many countries around the world, we're finding an increase in a number of different types of zoonoses. Avian flu, monkey malaria, a number of different intestinal parasites, things like this. We're finding reoccurrences in areas where they had long disappeared because of this disruption of the environment. Once again, where we're moving into where animals have long lived without our presence, or animals are coming into our presence. Why is it important to study this? Well, human safety is a large factor, and one way to do this is through the study of disease ecology. And today I'll be focusing about primate disease ecology. The three primates that are active during the daytime here in Sri Lanka are our targets for investigation: the toad macaque, the purple-faced langur, and the gray langur. We'll find purple-faced langur here on campus at any time of the day. I saw them just last night walking down from the main junction in front of the store. There's a troop of about 7 purple-faced langurs. They're living that close to us. They've lived here for a long time, and there's probably not anything to worry about as long as we keep ourselves clean. But Sri Lanka, like many developing countries here in Southeast Asia, are undergoing a lot of changes in the environment, a lot of expansion of human habitats, farming areas, destruction of forests, or timbering of forests, which destroys habitat for a number of animal species, leads to greater contact between humans and animals. Humans need room to expand and to grow their economies and animals as well need room to sustain themselves. So it's an ongoing conflict in some cases, and around the world people are very tentatively looking at ways to make this conflict less harmful to both parties. Now, to start this study, which we began back in 2007, Chamli and I came up with a questionnaire, and it was sent to all the districts throughout the country, asking what monkeys do you find in your area? How do you interact with the monkeys? What do the monkeys mean to you? About 32 different questions to try and understand the changes that may have been happening over the years between interactions with humans and primates, and indeed how people thought about the monkeys in the past. And how are they going to think about them in the future is one of the main targets of what we're interested in, to try and maintain this harmony between animals and humans. So we have 44 different regions throughout the country. We're not nearly finished. We still have a lot to do in the northwest and the eastern areas. That's much easier to get to these days, so we're beginning to expand. But what I'll present today is just a little background information and some of the data we have on zoonoses in the areas that I have listed here. Up until we started, most of the work done in primates was limited to the area called Porto in the north central province. So there's a lot of information about primates that live in that area, but very little about the rest of the country. So we saw that as an important place to start to look at the situation in the rest of the country. To give you a little background, deforestation in Sri Lanka is an ongoing process, but it's something that's been going on for quite a long time. They are estimated that by the 1800s, at the time of pre-British colonial period, 75% of the island was forested. In the 1920s, that was halved to 49%. 2010, 29.5%. Between 1990 and 2000, at an annual loss of 1.14% hectares percent loss over the time, and that is increasing today as development continues in the country. So there's a very clear correlation between decrease in forest area and increase in population. It's a common effect that happens around the world, and it's something that we need to try and understand and to limit at the same time to help economies improve. So one of the questions we had was, in the last 10 years, how have you seen your contact with monkeys? Has it increased or has it decreased? Interestingly, we found variation across the country. Most people tended to think, on average, that they were coming into increasingly more contact with animals, so that with monkeys. So that gives us an idea that there's a potential for an increase in transmission of diseases. So we're beginning our work there. This gives you an idea where the decrease with monkeys is likely to happen. It's areas that are fully developed, largely agricultural. There are few areas where the monkeys can live, so they're going to be coming into less contact. And that, over time, as the forests decrease, contact will decrease. Areas where increasing contact is happening, or where contact is fairly steady, are in more rural areas that are closer to the forest, where people still make much of their livelihood, not only on agriculture, but on products from the forest as well. As I mentioned earlier, most of the work that was done was at one site, and a lot of the work done in that area also had to do with parasite diseases, with health issues of the monkeys and potential issues with humans. On this table, since our survey began, all of these sites with the double circles are new parasite species that we managed to find in Sri Lanka in primates. And that's only because we've begun to spread our field of vision much wider across the country. And again, these parasites in blue are potential zoonotic species where transmission between primates and humans both ways are likely to be going on. But in this talk today, I'm just wanting to focus on 4 specific parasites The E. coli and histol dispar, these are two protozoans, and they can cause intestinal upset. And another two intestinal parasites, trichurus and hookworm. Now, transmission of these different parasites, of these two groups of parasites are different. One is direct ingestion, we find in these two species and in trichurus. And in hookworm, you have to spend a lot of time walking on the ground. Transmission is through the skin, and so we have different routes of transmission, and thus should be reflected in the habits of the primates. And also it's a good way for us to avoid infection by, for example, these first two parasites, to avoid drinking contaminated water. Clean water is definitely a necessity for humans as well as for animals. Animals have less access perhaps, so they have higher prevalences of some of these parasites than humans will. So basically what this preliminary data tells us is that E. coli, trichurus, and hookworm are the most prevalent, but trichurus is probably the highest prevalence amongst all of the species that we're looking at. Again, the taupe macaque is highly terrestrial. It spends a lot of time walking on the ground, so we would expect higher rates of hookworm, and that's the kind of things that we're seeing. One way that Sri Lanka is often characterized is through climate and altitude, the amount of rainfall as well as the elevation. These are very important parameters for the study of parasite ecology, because it has a large effect on the reproductive effort or the reproductive capacity of parasites to reinfect the host, which is their job. Their goal in life is to reinfect another organism. We distributed our data across these two ecological, biogeographical characteristics to try and understand, are there areas where people as well as primates are more susceptible to parasites? Are there other places less susceptible? Where do we concentrate our efforts from now to look more in depth at zoonosis transmission? Basically, this is the last slide that I'll show you for the data. We found some very, very clear patterns with having to do with altitude. Primates living at higher altitudes had fewer parasite infections. Some infections completely dropped out as we got to the higher, cooler areas, which is to be expected. We find most of the levels of reinfection, or the highest number of individuals being infected by parasites, in the low land, dry to humid areas. So basically we're finding what we expected to find based on what we found in Africa and other parts of Asia. But this is really only the beginning of what we're trying to do. Continued research across the country is important, and we need to incorporate molecular techniques to verify whether the zoonosis is actually occurring. Humans and primates can have very similar parasites, but it doesn't mean that transmission is occurring. So before anyone runs out of the conference and says, ask the children to stay away from monkeys or beware of monkeys, this is not a definitive result saying that transmission is going on, but there's a high likelihood and a risk for that kind of thing. That's something we have to begin to look at in more detail. And lastly, the fact that humans have lived with monkeys in areas around the world for long periods of time means, in effect, that there is some balance that has occurred. And this harm, the infections aren't as harmful as they could be to areas where we're newly entering into. So we need to look at these patterns as well. And hopefully in the future we'll have something more concrete and have some information that can be of use to Sri Lanka and other neighboring countries to how to deal with the information we're gathering now for the betterment of human life as well as our coexistence with primates. Thank you very much.
Relevant and pertinent presentation, and this presentation is very much timely and very much important for Sri Lanka. where the country is affected by so many diseases and so many epidemics are spreading in the country due to this kind of parasitic. And his presentation can be found from the page 207 in the proceedings books. And the next presentation will be on the preliminary, the regional disparities in human capital formation in Sri Lanka. Then this will be presented by Dr. D.P.S. Chandrakumara, Department of Economics, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, and his page number 107. You will find the abstract of his report. Dr. Chandrakumara, you are welcome.
Thank you, Professor Jayewardenepura, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My research topic is regional disparities of human capital formation in Sri Lanka. Actually, I am not present in the paper. I am presenting about the paper. Human capital can be defined in various forms. Usually, we define it as education, training, better health, and similar other attributes embodied in people. Anyway, education is the main form of capital that people have with them among all these forms. But it differs between individuals in the volume they have in this capital. And among the regions also there is a discrepancy. Therefore, my aim of this study was to find the differences in human capital and human capital formation among the various different regions, 9 regions in Sri Lanka. It was the focus. And the problem, regional differences in the formation of human capital through formal education. I limited this only to formal education. Objectives: to identify regional differences in the formation of human capital, then to develop a composite index to measure this, and to provide a framework, policy framework for policy makers in Sri Lanka to use this when they make policies for Sri Lanka. Importance of the study: this is actually the key to development in the modern world, and it is a measure of poverty alleviation also that we used in various countries to alleviate poverty. However, if there is a difference between individuals or regions in the formation of human capital, that will be a problem that will affect the differences in the development also among the regions. Therefore, this is important. I see this is important. Methodology. I deal with this only formal education, and 9 for instance are taken as regions. This is the toolkit. Theoretical measures: first, literacy rate, participation in formal education, then attainment of education, passing grades at GC, O-level and A-level, examinations, percentages of student quality for university admissions. Finally, I built a composite index including all these simple measures. These are the statistical rules, simple descriptive statistics, and also a composite index used to measure these discrepancies among the regions. Data sources, only the secondary data was used for the study. There are some limitations also. I now go to results. Literacy rate. This is not a great measure of human capital, but we must start from that measure when we talk about discrepancies among the regions. Highest in the western province, lowest in the eastern province, and in all provinces, female literacy rate is lesser than the male literacy rate. In the provinces where the overall literacy rate is low, the gap between male and female is high. We can see from this figure. And the second measure is participation in formal education. These are the main features of participation in formal education. Especially gender differences are there. From 5 to 14, no large differences, but from 19 to 24, female participation is higher in the northern and southern provinces, and there are some other differences also, main features when we measure human capital using this measure, participation rate. And this is the and third measure, simple measure, is taken as an individual measure. Attainment of education, the number of years of the level of education that individual population of country reached. These are the figures related to that. Male features are post-secondary. Northern province is the best. When we measure the human capital formation in terms of participation rate, northern province comes first. Then western province is the second. Other provinces are far behind. Males are behind females. Secondary and above western province gets the first place. No schooling also, there are some main features. Western province is the best in terms of the when we measure it using this tool. This is the ranking order. Overall attainment of education, western province gets the first rank, then the northwestern province gets the second rank when we measure using this attainment rate. Like that, we can prepare in ascending order. The other measure I used called measure passing grades at EC, O level and A level. This way we can measure using these individual tools separately. Passing rate in O level, highest in the western province, passing rate lowest in the north, central and poor provinces. Advanced level is highest in northern and northwestern can use this measure also to identify the regional differences in human capital formation. We can take another measure, university admissions, as how human capital is formed in different regions in the country. Finally, I come to the composite index. I merge all these measures, simple measures, in one to explain the final summarize all this as a method of summarizing this. This is a composite index. Weights were taken using the principal component analysis for different measures. Difference rate weight is 0.584, like that. That is the way I work with. That is using principal component analysis. Then finally we come to this result. The index values are like this. Western province comes first, that is the first rank. Then second rank Northwestern, third Southern province, then fourth Northern province, fifth Sabaragamu, like that. Eastern province is the weakest in the formation of human capital as a region in Sri Lanka. So then Uva is also very poor in the formation. So policymakers must take these things into account when we allocate resources among the regions also. Conclusion. Although the entitlement to free education in Sri Lanka is common for all, there is a huge inequality in the formation of human capital among the provinces. We are free to get education, but as at the household level or individually or in as provinces, we have differences, although the education is free. Therefore, policymakers should take this point into consideration and use a performance-based framework to analyze, monitor, and achieve the targets with a regional balance. Thank you.
In the page 107 in the proceedings report. And once again, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Chandrakumara for making the presentation, which was very interesting. And we are moving to the final presentation of this plenary session, and it will be on P-feature agreement in Sinhala, and it will be presented by Dr. N.G. Lalit Anand, Department of English, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, and his presentation will be found in page 216 in the proceedings. Dr. Anand, you are welcome.
Topic, that is P-feature agreement in Sinhala.
About 5 minutes.
What is P-feature agreement? This is person, number and gender agreement in natural language. We have an example here. In Nimal talks, what we are actually doing is, we identify some information in Nimal in this noun phrase NP. What is that information? Person information and number information and maybe also gender information. We reproduce it in the verb. Therefore, the verb inflects with this for this S form. So, Nimal talks. In the second example, in the first example, exactly the verb. So, we say the verb agrees with the subject in person and number. In the second example, too, the verb agrees with the subject in person and number. In this case, plural number and third person. Now interestingly, there are languages in the world where there is gender agreement also. For example, in Russian, as you see here, lamb is feminine in gender in Russian. Interestingly, there is this le suffix which shows gender agreement with the lamb. This is another phenomenon associated with agreement, that is movement. In some languages, agreement of the verb is determined depending on the position of the subject, whether the subject is located pre-verbally or post-verbally. For example, we have Italian dialects of Trentino and Fiorentino. In these two dialects, for the full agreement to occur, the subject must move forward, should be pre-verbal, as you see in this example. The first example, the first sentence is ungrammatical. Number 4. Because somewhere the subject is post-verbal, occurs after the verb. Therefore, agreement does not occur. When the subject is post-verbal, the agreement does not occur and the sentence is not grammatical. But when the subject moves to, in syntax we call it the spec TP position. When the subject moves to the front, as you see in example 5, the sentence, there is full agreement and the sentence is grammatical. So this is another phenomenon, this movement associated with agreement in natural language. Now, what is my object of investigation? In colloquial singular, there is no fee agreement. There is no person number agreement in colloquial singular. As you see in this example, whether it is third person subject Liman or first person singular subject I, Mama, or first person plural subject Api. Whatever the subject is, the verb does not inflect. The verb we have is the uninflected form, that is of washing, wash. So the verb ends in R form, as you see, Sodanava, or in the past, Seduva. So there is no fee agreement, person number in agreement in colloquial singular. However, the verb inflects for an A form. I have proceeded as A suffix, A form, when the sentence has a modal particle or a focus particle. Particularly, when this modal particle or the focus, in singular the modal particle, we have a number of modal particles. One is lu. Lu means evidential modality. So particularly when this modal particle has scope over the constituent to its left, the verb inflects for the A suffix. As you see in number 7, Liman lu. So the name says lu. So Liman, evidential modality marker lu. So lu has scope over Liman, and therefore the verb inflects for A. As you see, it is Sedui, not Sodanava or Sedua. The same thing happens when there is a focus particle also in singular. The focus particle in singular is Tamai. As you see here in example 8. So just like we observed in the modal particle here too, Tamai occurs after the subject Liman. In other words, Tamai has scope over Liman, and the verb once again inflects for the A form, A suffix. The same phenomenon occurs in a WH question also in singular. When you have a WH constituent, once again the verb inflects for the A form. Now in the ungrammatical example in number 10, we find when the verb does not inflect for the A suffix, when there is a modal particle or focus particle, the sentence is ungrammatical. That means this A form of the verb is obligatory when there is a modal particle or a focus particle, that is lu and tamai or lu or tamai, having scope over a DP and NP, in this case nimal, to its left. Interestingly, this A morphology, this A suffix is absent when the modal particle or the focus particle has wide scope, which means sentential scope, as you find here. So when we look at verb finally, having scope for the whole sentence, A suffix does not appear. A morphology does not turn up. So which shows that only when the focus particle or modal particle has scope over one particular constituent to its left, we have a morphology. Now, this is the problem. This is the problem. If singular does not have, colloquial singular does not have free agreement, person number jet agreement, then what is this A suffix? Actually, this has not received sufficient attention in literature, as you see here. Humanities, he observes that A marking gives focus interpretation, and the others also have given similar views about this A suffix. Then Hagstrom, he treats the A suffix as a scope marker, showing whether it is the focus of this focusing is in the embedded sentence or in the matrix sentence, depending on which verb inflects, whether it is the matrix verb, main sentence verb, or the embedded verb. Anyhow, the A suffix has not received sufficient attention in literature. Now, what is my argument? I argue that this A suffix is a reflex of agreement in singular. Therefore, modality and focus are grammatical features. Now, field features, person, number, gender, these are also called grammatical features. In the same way, my argument is in singular, focus and modality are also grammatical features encoded in language in singular. My proposal, I propose that complementizer head, we call it C head, is the locus of modal and focus and WH features. What I mean by C head is this. That C head is the locus of all modal, focus, WH features. And also I propose an analysis based on Chomsky 2006, where he proposes C transfers its features to a head down. For example, there C transfers its modal features to a head down. I also propose that there is a special projection in singular, that is modal P, below CP, above TP, below CP, above TP. This is the projection, model P. So this model P is also involved in agreement. And when C transfers its features to a head down, that particular head becomes a probe. What C transfers is actually unveiling features. These features are not valid. So this probe is looking for a proper goal somewhere down. When it finds its proper goal, there is a matching relation. Let me explain. So here, C transfers its modal features to modal head. This is the modal head. And this modal head with unveiling modal features it is a probe now. It looks for a goal, suitable partner, and it locates its goal here. Nimalu. So what happens is they enter agreement. This model between unvalued model feature and this Nimal loop. They enter agreement, and therefore, as a result of the agreement, Nimal loop moves to spec model P. So this is spec head agreement. And through the agreement, this unvalued feature is checked. It gets valued. How is it valued in this case? It is valued as plus model. The same thing happens when there is a focus particle also. But in this case I propose, when there is a focus particle in similar, in a sentence, C transfers its focus features not to a model head but the text head, T head below. So that is why we don't have a model T in the sentence, model projection. Straight away C transfers its focus features to the text head. And just like in the previous one, T becomes a probe, it has some unvalued features, it wants to get its features valued, in this case focus features, it is looking for a suitable goal, and the goal is here. They enter agreement relation, then this moves here. Remember, the most important thing here is when this agreement occurs between the model head with unvalued features and this Tamil phrase, focus phrase here, reflex of this overt agreement is this A suffix, this A form. That is a morphological reflex of this overt agreement. Now we have a question. What happens if a sentence has both model and focus features? We have in signal, we can use both model and model particle and the focus particle as we see here. Now in this case I propose C transfers its model features to the model head. C transfers its unvalued focus features to the focus head. Therefore, both model head and the text head, they are probes now, they become probes, they are looking for suitable goals, both of them locate this particular goal. Here, originate here. Then, they enter agree relation, and this phrase first moves to spec TP, but it cannot stay there, because still there is an unvalued model feature here. To value that, once again it has to move to the spec of model head, model projection here, so it has to move finally to this space. And once again, the overt morphological reflex of this agreed relation is the A suffix of the verb, this one. Now, then we have another question. If we do not have a model feature or a focus feature in a sentence, for example in a neutral sentence, how do we project it? What could be the projection? This is what I propose. There is no movement, just the subject stays in situ, in its originally generated place, spec of VP, and there is no agreement. So now to reconcile in movement, an XP, that is the noun phrase that we talked about in this case, it moves where? To spec model P. Why? To check the epistemic model feature. How do we know? A suffix. XP mark for focus, moves to spec TP, to check the focus feature, A suffix. Similarly here, A suffix, result of movement. XP mark for none, remains in situ, does not move. How do we know? No feature to check. How do we know no A suffix? Now, these are two problems we have in this analysis. Are these movements to spec TP? We call A movement or A bar movement. A movement is what we call a movement to an argument position. That is spec TP is A movement. Above TP, the CP area is called operator movement. So what kind of movement is this? This is the standard diagnostic of movement. A movement can create a new binder, as you see in this this example. John seems to himself to be smart. John originates here. It moves to this spectating position and still it can bind its reflexive himself. They are co-referential. Applied to singular, exactly, we find the same phenomenon. This moved Tamil phrase, force phrase, binds its reflexive. Therefore, I consider both movements as a movement. Now the second question, is single unique? No, single is not unique. Projection, which we can call alpha p, between TP and CP is proposed by all these people in their literature. So I have not projected something new, or single is not unique. Then these are my conclusions. In singular, agreement is triggered by model and focus features. Just as three features do, just as person, number, gender features do in other languages, including English. What is this A suffix? That was our initial question. A suffix is an overt reflex of this agreement. Then, what kind of movement we have to spec TP or to spec model P, do we remember? And movement to all these are A movement, not A bar movement, not operator movement. What is the advantage of this analysis? We can isolate all features on the C head alone. And thereby we can build up the conceptual argument that agreement is associated with C. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ananda, for making a very interesting presentation. Now, with this presentation, we are coming to the conclusion of the session. Before that, before winding up the session, I would like to open the discussion. We can allocate about 10 minutes for question and answer sessions. So we have our panel to give you any clarifications or explanations where necessary. So if you want to ask anything, please stand up and identify yourself and pose the question either to Dr. Stromquist or Lennart or to Professor Stromquist or Professor Lennart or to Professor Hoffman or Dr. Chandrakumara or to Dr. Ananda. So I open the floor for discussion. Please use this. Yes.
Professor Chandrakumara, don't you think that regional disparities in human capital which are there, in case of Sri Lanka, they have something to do with the social turmoil also? Because there are regions where a lot of social turmoil was going on, and it has a lot of bearing on the human capital also. So don't you think social turmoil is responsible for the disparities also?
Thank you for that question. Actually, I included only the formal education and measuring the human capital and regional differences. But I accept we have to measure this in a wider way, including all other forms of capital, social dimensions and everything. But in this itself, I didn't do that. I have to another research in fruit and all to do such a research. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any
Dr. Lalitananda, he was talking about something person, children and agreement, right? You are talking, are you saying that there is no person, children agreement within the words mama, api, something like that? Our sarvanama may be all our common nouns, right? Sarvanama. we say, we categorized Mama, Api over those words as Sarvanama. I have a doubt about it. Can you please explain between your concept and our Sarvanama?
Basically, the object of the investigation was colloquial singular. In fact, we know two different varieties of singular. This is exactly the diagnostic situation we find in number of countries, particular number of languages. So, in this diagnostic situation, we have in singular, we have a particular variety for the colloquial speech, and also we have a high or little variety where we have all person numbers in the agreement. So there is full free agreement in singular, in the written singular, which we learn as grammar, singular grammar in school. So here, my focus was on colloquial singular. This is the singular that we speak. So when we speak, we don't have in speech, we don't have any person in jail number in that room. That is what I was talking about. So it's true, there is agreement, and that is the literal singular. That is exactly what I said as identify as a diagnostic situation. I think
I must once again thank Professor Leonard Stromquist and Professor Hoffman, Dr. Chandrakumara and Dr. Ananda for making us aware of diverse subjects, diverse disciplines, and it was very interesting, and I hope that all the audience enjoyed your presentations. I wish all of you very best of everything, and also I wish all the participants a very successful workshop. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very good appetite. Thank you.